Thank you, Premier, and thank you all for joining us here today again. As the Premier outlined, and as I've had reason to say here before, with more Victorians at home to slow or stop the spread of the coronavirus, we know that the risk of family violence has increased over this period of time. Sadly, we know that for many in our community, home is not a safe place to be. And this has really highlighted for us how important it is that we continue with the work that we've been continuing on until up until now on the Family Violence Royal Commission recommendation implementation, and how important it is to make sure that we're continuing to meet the scheduled timelines as best as we can for those recommendations and continuing to rebuild a family violence system that was better than the one that we had before and better meets the needs of the victim survivors that rely upon it. To echo, before I get into the actual announcement today, to echo the Premier's sentiments, it really is critical that people understand that if you are at risk of family violence or experiencing family violence during this phase of lockdown, you are allowed, entirely permitted to leave. It is an entirely legitimate reason to leave, and that service system supports are still available to you if you need them. Help is there if you need it. So we would really appreciate it. That message is shared far and wide so that we can have people availing themselves of the help they need to minimise the risk that might be presented to them. My announcement today has three parts, and the Premier has preempted a couple of those. Firstly, I'm announcing the expansion of the Orange Door network with the rollout of an additional 5 Orange Door areas. Those areas include Melbourne South, Inner East, the Ovens Murray, Wimmera South West and Outer Gippsland, which will be operational next year. And we can also announce the location of the primary site in 2 of these, which is in the Inner East, which will be located in Box Hill, and the Ovens Murray, where the primary site will be located in Wangaratta. We'll have more to say about the primary site locations for those other regions in due course, and of course also about the locations of access points, which are effectively other points of entry to the network in those regions, alternative entry points, particularly in larger regions where there might be multiple large population centres. So we'll have more to say about that in due course. For those who may not know, the Orange Door network brings together family violence services, it brings together children and family services, perpetrator services, Aboriginal services, and essentially operates as a coordination point. It connects people, no matter where they live in that region, to what they need when they need it, and it's essentially designed to make it easier for victim survivors to navigate what is an incredibly complex system by essentially doing that for them, streamlining that navigation to just ensure that we can minimise the stress levels for those victim survivors who may be at risk at what is, I think we could all recognise, a very stressful time in their lives as it is. It's also worth noting that we've already got 5 Orange Door sites up and running in Barwon, Inner Gippsland, Bayside Peninsula, North East Melbourne and Mallee, and we'll have another 3 coming online very shortly, which were effectively the phase 2 of the rollout. Those are in Central Highlands, Loddon and Goulburn. Central Highlands and Loddon we expect to be open by the end of the year, and the one in Goulburn, which will be in Shepparton, the primary site will be in Shepparton, will be open in the first half of next year. In terms of the second component of today's announcements, which the Premier also preempted, which was to talk to you about where we're up to in that family violence reform as a whole. There was 227 recommendations of the Royal Commission into family violence, and we're committed to implementing every single one of them, and we're well on the road to doing that. I can now announce that we've acquitted 166 of those recommendations, which means we're about 2/3 of the way through that list of recommendations. I mean, we've got about 61 to go. All of those 61 remaining recommendations are underway, but I think it's really important to note that the work for most of those is ongoing. This isn't a checkbox exercise. This isn't about completing the list and walking away. This is about continuing to build a system that meets the needs of the community that it is there to serve, and to meet those needs in a way that delivers better outcomes than it has previously. This is about joining up a system that has, as the Royal Commission told us, previously been very siloed and very disconnected. In terms of some of the highlights of that recent tranche of acquitted recommendations, included among them is the launch of the Family Violence Jobs Portal, the development of a family violence training program for medical practitioners, and the trialling of the use of body-worn cameras by Victoria Police during family violence incidents. And we're awaiting the evaluation of that trial and awaiting very eagerly to see how that worked and how that added to the safety of victim survivors of family violence. Finally, the third component of today's announcement was around an additional investment we're making into prevention work. This is work that is designed to stop this violence from happening in the first place, stop it before it starts. So we'll be investing an additional $3.4 million in prevention work with a focus on our Aboriginal community, our multicultural communities, and on those with disabilities. Understanding, of course, that family violence affects every part of our community, but it's really important that we have a response to it that is culturally appropriate and that gets the best outcomes in a community-led way, and getting advice from the experts, from those people within community who can tell us the best way to have some difficult conversations, who can best identify the needs within those communities and be best able to guide us as to what we need to be doing differently in some settings to be adequately able to reduce the risk within those communities.